Good morning and a warm welcome to all of you joining us today from all corners of the world. As many of you know, last week the Energy Efficiency Directive recast entered into force. It provides the EU member states with a 2-year window to incorporate the directive's new provisions into their national laws. The EED is a cornerstone directive of the EU energy and climate policy, and therefore we with the European Copper Institute have collaborated with the Odyssee-Mure Project and the European Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, the ECEEE, to launch this new webinar series called the Energy Efficiency Academy, and our focus will be on this 2023 directive implementation. We will introduce you to our partners shortly, but let's get straight to the reason why you've all joined this webinar, our 3 distinguished speakers. Firstly, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Niels Fuglsang, a Danish member of the European Parliament for the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, the SND group. And Niels was the rapporteur for the revision of the Energy Efficiency Directive. So Niels, we're honored to have you in our panel today, and I pass on the microphone to you now and invite you to share in the next 5 minutes your key ideas on this recast directive.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I am thrilled to be here also because, as you mentioned, the Energy Efficiency Directive just entered into force last week, the 10th of October. And I think the Energy Efficiency Directive really marks a new direction for the European Union when it comes to our energy consumption and our energy production as well. I think there was a time when we thought in the European Union, and that time is not long ago, that it was okay for us to be dependent and to increase our dependency on energy from foreign powers, be that Russia, countries in the Middle East. We expanded our grid system, our pipeline system to Russia. We imported more and more gas and oil as well. And we have realized, of course, all of us, that this dependency is harming us, and we need to become less dependent, and we need to be more self-sufficient when it comes to our energy consumption. And that means that politics is back in business. We cannot just say that the energy system should be left to the market forces. We need to put a political direction on the energy system, and I believe that is what we do here. I hope that the Energy Efficiency Directive, together with the climate law, the Green Deal as such, the Repower EU plan, and the Net Zero Industry Act, can mark the beginning for a new direction when it comes to our energy consumption and our dependency, which I hope will be smaller in the years to come. I'm sure you know that 40% of our CO2 savings have to come from energy efficiency efforts, according to the International Energy Agency, for us to be net zero by 2050. The energy crisis and the dependence on Russian gas has meant that I believe that's my experience in these negotiations on the Energy Efficiency Directive, that we have reached a more ambitious result than we could have hoped for earlier when the Commission first came out with its proposal. As you know, the European Commission came out with a Repower EU plan for how to get rid of Russian gas. And in that plan, the Commission says that 1/3 of the gas savings need to come from the Energy Efficiency Directive. So that is why it's important that we have a strong directive, high targets, and also a binding directive. I'd also say that we have different analysis showing that increasing energy efficiency is not, we shouldn't look at it as just the cost as an economic burden. Really, when you increase energy efficiency, you can have economic growth, you can have increased GDP. And analysis from econometrics Cambridge econometrics show that 1% increase in energy efficiency grows the EU GDP by 7.9 billion euros. So there are many reasons to do this. Climate is, of course, a main reason. Independence from Russia and other foreign powers when it comes to energy is another good reason. And the economy is healthy as well. So many reasons to do this. That's why I'm happy that we have now an ambitious energy efficiency directive saying that we should increase energy efficiency by 11.7% by 2030. That means a reduction in final and primary energy consumption by 11.7% by 2030. That is compared to the baseline scenario from 2020, where the Commission has made a scenario for what we would use in final energy consumption by 2030. That's a reduction of more than 100 million tons of oil equivalents. Or in other words, it's almost the whole energy consumption of the country, Spain, that the EU needs to reduce the energy consumption, the final energy consumption by. We have a strong governance in the new target, in the new directive, and that's why the Commission has actually the power to infringe member states that are not living up to, that are not putting sufficient plans on the table. We will hear from Claudia from the Commission in a minute, but it was important for me to make sure that the Commission has powers to make sure that we can enforce this directive. And I think we came a long way here, meaning that the directive is binding on an EU level. Of course, we don't write binding on national level when it comes to the overall target. However, the Commission has the power if there is a gap and if the member states do not fill the gap and come with the necessary actions and plans, the Commission has the power to legally enforce this directive. We also have a strong energy savings obligation. It's on average 1.5% energy savings obligation that the member states has to take initiatives that will save 1.5% in average of the energy consumption. That starts off by 1.3% and ends by 1.9%. So it goes upwards gradually towards 2030. And we have strong provisions, I would say, on the public sector. The public sector needs to save 1.9% energy consumption, and 3% of the public buildings have to be renovated each year. That's a strong increased ambition compared to the current directive, which only has this 3% requirement for the state's building. But now we increase it to also the municipalities, regions, the whole public sector. It was, of course, tough negotiations. In the final trialogue, where Claudia, which we will hear from, was also present, lasted almost 16 hours. We ended almost 6 o'clock in the morning, but I believe we got a good deal. I think that one of the trade-offs for getting a high target and a strong governance on the target was to allow some more flexibility for member states on how they want to reach this. That means also that when it comes to the public renovation requirement, we do allow for an alternative approach to exist. Member states can use an alternative approach, but that has to deliver the same amount of energy savings as the 3% renovation if they don't want to do that, but they want to use the alternative approach. And if they use the alternative approach, they will have to make sure that by 2040, the amount of buildings that are renovated to nearly zero energy performance buildings is the same as if they did 3% yearly. So I think we have some flexibility which member states appreciate, but we also have a strong target and a strong governance around the target. And I can, for one, say that I'm proud of the result. But now comes the implementation, and here I think we all need to be watchdogs to make sure that governments take this serious. We have the legal backing to do so, but we need you guys, I would say, to watch the member states and make sure that this happens, because we need to make it happen for the climate, for the energy independency and for the economy as such. Thank you very much.
Okay, great, and thanks to you, Niels. I heard you saying a few times the words ambitious, strong governance, independency, economic growth. I think we can all take on those keywords in the discussion afterwards. So also great to hear that you're happy with the final result, because I can imagine that negotiations were indeed tough. You also pointed to given the Commission the necessary power to now make sure that we can achieve these targets. So I think indeed this is the time to invite Claudia Canevari on stage. Claudia is head of the Energy Efficiency Unit at DG Energy at the European Commission. I think she's well known to many of us. You referred to the 16-hour negotiations, Niels, but I can also imagine that the adoption of the text marked a milestone and a great achievement for Claudia and her team after not only 16 hours, but many months, or even, should I say, years, Claudia, of hard work. So it's great to have you here as well. Please share with us your highlights on the EED recast from the Commission's perspective.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. I'm very happy to be here. And indeed, we are also very happy in the Commission about the results of the Energy Efficiency Directive that indeed entered into force. So now the real work, let's say, at the member states level starts, and we are geared to follow these obviously very closely. Let me also recall that the Energy Efficiency Directive is a pillar of the Fit for 55 package. Obviously, this is essential. Without the Energy Efficiency Directive, it would be much more costly to reach our decarbonization objectives. I mean, the directive also paves the way to more deployment of renewables, because, of course, there could be added capacity there instead of more fossil fuels. So it is a precondition, and all the scenarios that the Commission has worked upon showed the importance of energy efficiency and of the Energy Efficiency Directive. So we are very happy to have a strong legislative act now in the EU acquis. And it will really bring, if implemented properly by the member states, it will bring the expected results. Nils already recalled some of the important elements of the recast, and I will also underline the 11.7% of binding EU target. And this word binding is particularly important. It is the first time that the energy efficiency target is binding. So now it is like the renewables target and the GHG target at the same level with the same importance. And we think that this will be an important element to push for more attention given to energy efficiency. So this is an excellent result that the co-legislators managed to reach. But what is also super important is the fact that there is a strengthened governance mechanism, again, as Nils was already recalling, that gives the Commission the power to intervene in case the member states do not pledge via their national indicative contributions enough to reach the target. And the Commission will look at this very closely in order to make sure that there is no gap and that the results can really be reached. The member states have already presented their draft revised national energy and climate plans by June. I mean, not every member state did, but slowly we are getting there. And they have to present their final ones by June 2024. And that will be, let's say, the moment or the final moment where we will see what the member states' ambitions are. And we really hope that everybody will do its part. That is really essential. In fact, everybody needs to respond to let's say, to live up to the responsibilities. The second point that I would like to mention as regards what is really improved in the recast is the energy efficiency first principle. You know that was already in the governance regulation, but it was quite weak, and it was clear from how it was covered by the member states in their national energy and climate plans that not much attention was given to it. And this is now different. We have a strong principle. Member states have to look into it. They have to identify an authority or more authorities that have to watch it. And it has to be used for investment decisions, for decisions of planning, and for legislative decisions. And what is relevant to underline is that it doesn't apply only to the energy sector, but also to the non-energy sectors when energy is into consideration. And this is a key element because it really covers the whole spectrum of the economy and of the society. And another point that again is stronger in this directive compared to what was in the 2018 directive is the empowerment of consumers and the attention given to energy poverty. And this is also key because, as you know, the fair transition is essential. According to the Commission, we need to make sure that nobody is left behind. And so specific attention is to be given by the member states to those in energy poverty and also to, for example, to low-income households and so on. And we have for the first time a definition of energy poverty, which is to be used throughout the acquis. So we have seen, for example, that the social and climate plan already refers to the definition of energy poverty that we have in the EED. And this is a big step forward. The other important change or improvement, already Nils recalled it, that I just would like to mention is the public sector. And this is particularly important for us because the public sector leads by example. Whatever comes from the public sector has influence in what is, has a lot of repercussions in the way the society and the economy works. And also what is in the public sector is beneficial for everybody. So investments in the public sector have a lot of, let's say, positive effects on the population as a whole. And maybe one element that is sometimes not recalled concerns public procurement, because we also have a strengthening of the public procurement rules amongst the package of the public sector provisions. And let's not forget that the public procurement is responsible for 14% of the EU GDP, which is 2 trillion euros per year. And therefore, whatever happens there has really a significant impact. So with that, I will conclude saying that we are really grateful to the Parliament for its ambitious approach for the Energy Efficiency Directive. And indeed, it was a tough negotiation. Beside the 16 hours trilogue that Niels recalled, there were afterwards very long technical meetings to sort out the different aspects. There was excellent cooperation between the three institutions. And in fact, we are seeing a very good result on the table. And we look forward now for the ambition of the member states, of course. Many thanks.
Okay, thanks to you, Claudia. And indeed, good that you stress indeed the importance of the public procurement element, which is indeed not so much stressed when we're talking about EED. We talk more about public buildings, but that's of course much larger than only the buildings. Then please welcome our third speaker, Arianna Vitali. She's Secretary General of the Coalition for Energy Savings. And Arianna, I know that you will introduce your organization further, but I know you as having a rich history and a good track record in analyzing the EED in particular, and also the impact to the wider community of all the impacted stakeholders. So I'm also very grateful to have you on our panel today, and also very curious to hear your views as well. Please, Arianna.
Yeah, thank you very much for this invitation to speak. I'm very happy here to represent the coalition together with the other two distinguished speakers. So the Coalition for Energy Saving is an association based in Brussels that is composed by a big variety of members. We have civil society organizations, business associations, local authorities, and energy agencies. and also representative of energy communities, citizens energy community. So I like to say that the diversity of the coalition, it's actually an illustration of the multiple benefits of energy efficiency, because whether you are a business, a civil society organization, or a citizen, there is always a good reason to save energy that makes sense, irrespective from where you come from. Before starting to give our assessment of the Energy Efficiency Directive, the coalition has a long experience on that, as we are working on the EED since more than a decade. I'd also really would like to thank Claudia and Nils for their commitment in negotiating the Energy Efficiency Directive. I think you put all your competencies and motivation to get the best deal possible, really trying to counterbalance the Council position that was putting a brake on ambition. So I think really thanks again from a stakeholder perspective. Your work has been really much appreciated. So our assessment of the coalition, of course, is very much aligned with what the two previous speakers have presented. I think we have a lot of positive points that were already highlighted. I must admit as well that on certain elements as well, we have as well a bit more of a negative assessment, linked, of course, to the fact that negotiations were very tough. On the positive side, I think I perfectly agree with the previous speakers that really highlighted how the new Energy Efficiency Directive reinforced the current framework. So we have rules that are much stronger, that are much tougher, and I hope that can be much better implemented as well at the national level. One key one for us has been clearly the higher energy efficiency target, which is binding at the EU level for final energy, unfortunately not for primary energy, but still we believe that with this target, with the stronger governance and the mechanism to reinforce its implementation will be a driver for national action. So I think here the key message is the EED is stronger. Member states will really need to accelerate action to ensure that they will comply with this requirement, and this is really positive. However, there are as well some elements that are a bit less positive, I should say. So one is that the overall ambition of the directive is unfortunately still below the cost-effective energy savings potential, meaning that there are still much more that could be done by using existing technologies and also with actions that make economic sense. The other element which we are a bit more concerned is also that the additional actions could have a slow start. And let me explain what I mean by that. For example, the public sector obligation, the new target that to reduce to reduce 1.9 energy consumption in public bodies will only become binding on member states in 2027. So of course, action could be delayed towards the end of the decade. The alternative approach for the public building renovation, while it's positive that of course it has to deliver the same amount of energy savings than the default approach, there is a possibility for member states actually to delay the renovation of buildings to nearly zero energy levels to 2040. So that, of course, is very much delayed. And of course, the progressively increase of Article 8 is also as a progressive start, meaning that the 1.9% yearly energy savings will need to be achieved by member states towards the end of the decade. So I think, again, we really need to think the Energy Efficiency Directive as a key element of the Fit for 55 package, and that urgency of actions really needs to be starting, and implementation should start as soon as possible. So with that, I would like then to go to my second point, and here, Didier, you can put my only slide that I have. I think urgency of actions means that member states need to start planning as soon as possible all the measures of the EED. And actually, good implementation starts with good planning. And Claudia already recalled the importance of the national energy and climate plans in that respect, because member states at EU level have already to integrate the new EED requirements in the draft update of the plans that were due by June. So as Coalition for Energy Savings, we are doing what Niels asked to do, so being a watchdog of this implementation. And we actually have started analyzing all the NECP draft updates that were submitted last June. Our report is in finalization and will be ready by tomorrow, and I hope you will be able to read all our details. But so the report that we are publishing basically try to check whether the new EED requirements are correctly reflected in the NECP's updates. And actually the picture that you can see in the map is not really good. So first, there is a big chunk of member states, including big ones, that have not submitted at all draft NECPs. Including Germany, including France, including Poland. So this gives an idea already of the fact that implementation is starting slow. In this case, not just for the Energy Efficiency Directive, but of course also for the other elements of the Fit for 55s. When we checked the plans that were submitted, we found actually that no plan is compliant with the new requirements of the EED. Only 4 member states, Spain, Italy, Luxembourg, and Lithuania, are almost compliant with the new requirements. And the majority of the member states, you can see them in red, dark red, or dark orange in the map, are actually do not only partially update the plans or update it in a way that is insufficient, meaning that the ambition is lower of what is required by the EED. So just to give an idea of the key requirements, and then I'll stop on how the key requirements of the EED have been reflected on this draft plan. Overall, we should say that the 2030 EU energy efficiency target, the Article 4 with the national energy efficiency contributions and the energy savings obligations are those that are best reflected in the plans by the member states that have submitted. But also in this case, most of the member states submit national energy efficiency contributions that are not aligned with the 11.7% target and that are less ambitious than the formula's result, and that's a problem. On the energy savings obligation, I think also there is a good track record of implementing this article, and this is shown in the draft update, the NECPs. But for example, we noticed that the target on energy poverty is actually, and the fact that the action must be prioritized on the vulnerable consumers is most of the time neglected, and that's a big problem. On the energy efficiency first principle, also, unfortunately, we noticed that this has not been used as an overarching principle to draft the plan, and most member states only pay lip service to the principle without really including them in the planning. And unfortunately, I would say that that's the same for the public sector obligation and for how member states implement or plan to implement the public building renovation vary largely across plans. But this is not the end of the story. I think that if we all work together at the national level, and if the Commission analyze the plans and send good recommendation, this map could be turned green by June. So I think we have a window of opportunities in the next months to help member states doing their job, to help member states implementing the EED, and we hope to see a green map before the summer break. And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arianna, for these, somewhat critical notes indeed, together with the enthusiasm of having this this directive in place. So indeed, it's up to the member states now. So I hope that we have many of them amongst the audience today. I, by the way, see that we have close to 300 people participating to this webinar, which is a great number. So great to have you all listening and watching us. I think also that you will have a lot of questions now for our speakers. So please put them in the Q&A pot. I see that some also already found their way. So please keep going with putting your questions. But before we delve into the questions, let me now give a bit of a background on this initiative, the Energy Efficiency Academy. And then I'll share my screen again. There you are. So, as I mentioned already, it is a joint initiative of the Odyssee-Mure Project, the ECEEE, and the Leonardo ENERGY platform, which is managed by ECEEE. And I see that Didier Bosseboeuf already put on his camera. So Didier is from the French ADEME, and he's coordinator of the Odyssee-Mure Project. So Didier, could you enlighten us about this project for the next 2 minutes?
Thank you, Dieter. 2 days ago, I have 2 hours to present Odyssee-Mure in the French ministry. Today, I have only 2 minutes, but we are very flexible. As the Odyssee-Mure network, we strongly believe that we can contribute in our manner to the implementation of the EED, in particular in the monitoring of the energy efficiency EED impact. And we have a long-lasting cooperation with the European Commission, which funds this project from the last 30 years. And last concerted action in Brussels last week, we were around 20 experts from Odyssee-Mure network, which participate to the concerted action. So there are already a lot of link between our project and the EED. This is a live project, and our main topic is to monitor energy efficiency at the European level and at national level, at a very detailed level that doesn't exist somewhere else. So we can consider this, we are the best practice in monitoring efficiency. To do that, it's a decentralized project. We have 40 partners, 28 EU countries, UK left, but they will come back, fortunately. And we have new partners from the energy community, which participate for the first time in this program, and we are very interested to see how they will be able to monitor their efficiency. This project relies on 2 databases, Odyssey, which is a database on energy demand and energy efficiency indicators, and we have about 200 energy efficiency indicators, but also some aggregate indicators. We have an update every year, so we have the most recent result available in Europe in that project. And we have introduced a new process in this database, using as much as we can Eurostat data, or let's say horizontal sources of data, in order to make to ease the work of the national team, but also to make more official our data collection. The partners are mainly from energy efficiency agencies. We have ministries, we have academics. So we have a large range of expertise, and we are around 120 experts working currently in the program. We have so many data that it could be not always easy to manage this data, and this is why we have developed what we call end-use facilities, which present the result in a more friendly manner. For example, we can see directly the energy savings. We have a second tool, which is a Mure database, which gathers the 3,000 energy efficiency policy at national level. And what is also original, we put as much as we can, the ex-post evaluation when it's available. And roughly speaking, 1/3 of the policy implemented in Europe have a sort of impact evaluation. And based on that, we are able to monitor and to analyze the energy efficiency trends. It's not only a project on data collection. I may say it's the boring part of the project. We are mainly policy analysts. And I see in the list of our participants that many of them are policy analysts. And with all this material, we develop a certain number of dissemination tools. One is a policy assessment tool, which is developed for the European Commission by my friend Wolfgang Eschamer and his team. And during that program, we will make some study case at national level to encourage the national team to use this policy assessment tool, which able to evaluate the impact of each of our energy efficiency policy. But today, what we are in this range of webinar, the contribution of Odyssee-Mure is to propose a series of 26 policy briefs that Didier may present later on, which are linked to the concerted action. So this is each of our partners will develop one or two policy brief, which is 8 to 10 page document where we take a policy issue that interests the agency or each partner, and to evoke what are the issue and what are their viewpoint on their implementation. So this is why it's policy-oriented paper, and it's based on all the documents that we are on Odyssee-Mure. We have a strong dissemination policy besides this series of webinar. For instance, we have a scoreboard that certainly Nils from ECEEE will present. So I am the honored and happy coordinator of that project, which run, I think, very well. And we can consider it's the best practice in Europe to monitor efficiency. And I am sure that we can contribute to monitor the impact of the EED. And for instance, the scoop I can deliver, I should give you, it's not a good news, but the energy savings that we have calculated for the year 2021, it's 0.5%. So you see, we are quite far. This is new from last Friday. We are quite far from the 1.5% or from the obligation of the Article 8. So we have a lot of work to do, and Odyssey will show to the Commission if we are close or close to the target or not. Thank you for attention, and thank you for Leonardo ENERGY to have accepted to display all our results through this policy brief. Thank you, and good luck for your implementation.
You're welcome, Didier, and thanks for your contribution as well. And as we all know, your enthusiasm about Odyssee-Mure is legendary, and indeed not without any reason. So I would encourage everyone to really go have a look at the website of Odyssee-Mure, because it's really rich source of information. Our second partner is the European Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. And Nils, I see that you showed up again. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Diedert. I won't say so much. I'm just, again, saying, first of all, I'm really happy about this Energy Efficiency Academy. I think it's a great project to be cooperating on. And so ECEEE, we have been part of the Odyssee-Mure consortium for, first time was the last round. So it's, say, 3-4 years now. Our role is a very specific one. We are not part of the analytical underlying work, but we have a, let's say, a communication and branding work, and the product we have is the Energy Efficiency Scoreboard for Europe that we presented, and we are now working to try to complete the next one, the updated one. So it is a communication tool. It's on the Odyssee-Mure website. You can go and check the various things. Our job is then actually to develop a way of communicating this with graphic imagery and of course disseminate this through our platform. We have been discussing within ECEEE for many years to kind of blame and shame or encourage the forerunners, etc., who is doing the best. But of course, starting this within ECEEE, it was simply not possible for us to enter into this. So we have been talking about this, I'm sure, 15 years. So we were really, really delighted when we were contacted by Odyssee-Mure and Fraunhofer to get started, and together with Didier, so we could develop a project partly based on the American, well, I would say inspired by the American score. They call them scorecards, but we have our own, and it's really interesting. It's really good, and there are always surprises coming out of that. So I'm super happy to be part of this, and I'll be happy to, once I'm sure at the Academy we will be presenting the energy efficiency scoreboard in maybe 6 months from now or so, the update one. Let's see when it's ready and when we come with an invitation here. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Niels. And indeed, we have a session dedicated to the scoreboard in the coming months. So keep an eye on your inboxes, I would say. And of course, the third partner for this webinar series is the organization that I represent. Myself is Leonardo ENERGY, as an initiative that was set up almost 20 years ago already by the European Copper Institute. Leonardo ENERGY webinars aim to make the bridge between energy technology, policy and markets. So running such a platform is one of the many active roles that the European Copper Institute is taking in advancing the energy transition. We don't only see copper as a material of choice for the energy transition, but we also want to be the enabler of knowledge sharing and debate. So, as I already told, this is the marking of the beginning of a series of monthly webinars that will delve deep into key themes of the EED recast. And I will not go over them all. You see them now displayed on the screen. So we will explore various topics that are key to this EED recast. And what we in general want to achieve is provide a comprehensive and interactive learning experience on the various aspects of energy efficiency. And as you can see there, it's about policy analysis and evaluation, but also dive into technologies and solutions, and also market developments. So that's a bit the goal of our academy. But now back to our panel. Stop share. And I see that we have 15 minutes for a further discussion, and I also see that Wolfgang Eichhammer from the Fraunhofer Institute has been very active already in answering some topics. But maybe as for a first reaction, Niels, maybe to start with you, when you saw that map that Arianna presented on where the member states are today, and I can imagine that on the targets itself, it has been a tough debate as well. We all know that the national contributions are not binding. On the other hand, member states feel that there is much to do. So what is your expectation on how member states will gear up on achieving the targets?
So thank you for that question. Also thanks to Arianna for making this map. And I look forward to reading your report, Arianna. And I think we all should read your report, because if the situation is, as you describe it, that member states are certainly not incorporating the targets or the measures in their national energy and climate plans, I mean, it's our job, it's our common job to hold them accountable. We have the, as I said, we have the legal backing now. The Commission has instruments to enforce this. And so we need to carefully follow this. This is why it's great that you do this, and that we have competent people like you who can give us this overview. And I will take this report and go to my government in Denmark and say, look, what's going on? We have, of course, I mean, the directive entered into force last week. So to defend the member states a little bit, it's new, the whole thing. For some of the targets, there's a transposition period for a couple of years, for 2 years. But they need to take it in. That doesn't change the fact that they need to take all of this into account right now in their national energy and climate plans. But I mean, I think it's expected that there will be some challenges in the first period. We have to remember this is quite an increase in ambition level compared to what's going on right now with the current directive. Or sorry, the new directive just entered into force, but a week ago we had the old directive, and the new directive is really quite a step upwards when it comes to the ambition level. Just take the energy saving obligation as an example. It starts by 1.3 and goes up to 1. Now, the old directive, which applied until 1 week ago, had an energy saving obligation of 0.8. So on average, we almost double that obligation. So it's really something that the member states, they have to make a huge effort, and we need to hold them accountable and remind them that this is going to happen. When we had the negotiations, you know, we discussed with the council, of course, and they said, you know, this is going to be bloody difficult to live up to. And we said, well, we are elected in a climate election, but people that voted for us, the European Parliament, they expect action when it comes to climate mitigation, and energy efficiency is a key tool here. That's our mandate from the voters. While the government said it's going to be extremely difficult to do, we said, well, is it more realistic to keep on being dependent on Russian gas and oil? Is it more realistic to just break all our climate promises and have climate change massively? No. So we have a common job, and thank you, Arianna, for this illustration. It tells us that we have something to do.
Great, Niels, thanks. Arianna, I will give the floor to you in a minute, but I first wanted to ask Claudia for, I see in the chat and also in the Q&A, a lot of people are indeed referring, just like Niels also, this is going to be tough for many member states. So it is a challenge. Member states can use support. How will the Commission be organized in the coming period to support member states there? I know, for instance, that you're currently preparing with your team guidance notes. How can we expect the Commission is going to support member states in the coming period?
Thank you, Didier. Just to say that indeed we have prepared an implementation plan, let's say, into inverted commas, which is an internal document just for us to identify possible activities to support the member states in their transposition and implementation efforts. Clearly, the guidance documents are an important part of this exercise. We are planning to come forward with a series of guidance documents that will be recommendations from the Commission, so they will be formally adopted by the college. There will be, the number I think is 8, so we will be covering the energy efficiency first principle, the target, the public sector, Article 11 on energy audits and energy management systems, Article 26 on heating and cooling, then the consumers articles, and Article 30 on financing. I think I have mentioned them all. Probably also Article 29 on energy services, although this is still not yet decided. The idea is to have them either just before the end of the year or in early 2024. So that's certainly a key part of our work. But then there is the concerted action, which is always a very relevant setting for cooperation with the member states. As it was already recalled by Didier, we had one in Brussels last week, and it was focused on the new EED recast. And there was a very big participation from the member states with about 150 participants from almost all the member states. So it was quite a record. And then we are planning also to go to the member states to discuss with the administrations about the directive. The idea is to try to reach out to more let's say, colleagues from the member states than the ones that are able to come to Brussels when we organize meetings. We have the committee meetings still. So as you can see, and we are engaging with the member states on a regular basis. For example, we had an EED committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and we offered again dedicated meetings to the different articles of the directive if the member states are interested. So this is another important avenue. And of course, there will be a lot of cooperation as regards the ECPs, because as it was already recalled various times, these are key instruments, and what Arianna showed is indeed quite worrying. And of course, we know, because we've seen how, let's say, slowly the NECPs came. I would say that there is maybe a small justification as regards energy efficiency, in the sense that, as you know, the Commission is expected to come up with an update of the 2020 reference scenario by the end of November, and member states will then probably see what are the revised numbers and made their calculations on this basis. So in a way, I mean, some of the member states told us that they will be waiting for this. So as I said, small justification, but very small, but still. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Claudia. Arianna, 2 short questions for you. I don't know if the answer will be short as well. Let's try. One is a more practical one. There were some people in the chat or in the Q&A asking about the map, if that is entirely clear to everyone, because some of the countries you mentioned are color coded like compliant, but haven't
well, there is a gray and a green that probably are very much similar. So
okay.
The big part of the EU map was gray, meaning not submitted, and there was actually no green, meaning no member state that with our scoring we judged fully compliant. I think maybe when you share the recordings, you will be able to share as well our report, the link to our report that normally is online tomorrow. So people could also click and have a look. Otherwise, check on our social media, Twitter or LinkedIn, or on our website, and you'll be able to read the report and download the map. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, we will indeed include the link to the report in our mail. And then Arianna, another question that I had for you. Also trying to consolidate some of the questions and remarks in the chat. We are focusing, of course, on energy efficiency now, but as Claudia already pointed, this is a part of the Fit for 55 and of the broader climate policy of the European Union. But some people also see some contradictions between the focus on energy efficiency and decarbonization of our economy. What is your take on that?
Well, I think, as also Claudia has mentioned before, I think I see energy savings, reducing consumption, reducing wasteful demand uses in our energy system as the cheapest way to decarbonize. I think the message here, to be very short, is very clear. I think energy efficiency technologies and solutions exist, are proving applicable and are already available on our market, so do not need to be developed, and can really contribute to reduce emissions. The other things I would like to mention, that energy savings, it makes our society better by reducing energy bills for consumers, by reducing energy costs for industry, but also the energy prices, the cost of kilowatt hour per unit allows business to be more competitive. So I think we should not see at all energy savings in contraposition or in contradiction with decarbonization. It's actually the key tool to make this happen in a way that is affordable.
Okay, thank you. Niels, maybe back to you. I guess you will agree with what Arianna just said, but maybe let's broaden this a bit from your viewpoint. You're representing the S&D group in the parliament. So the link between this directive and fighting energy poverty is, I guess, close at heart to you as well. In the chat, some people are also mentioning, okay, and what would be the role for energy sufficiency? And yeah, maybe it's also good to first introduce what you think energy sufficiency would be, and then indeed comment on what you think is the link with this directive.
Well, energy sufficiency, for me, I mean, having sufficient energy is of course a matter of producing enough energy, but then also using the energy in a smart way. So I think the green transition is very much both a matter of producing in a different way, but also consuming in a different way. And I think, you know, I met colleagues in the parliament who says, well, if all our energy will be renewable, why is energy efficiency important? And, you know, because then it's green energy. Well, I think there are two answers to that. First, all our energy is unfortunately not renewable. It's not green as of today. Very far from that, unfortunately. But we will hopefully get there. And when we get there, energy efficiency will still be important, because we will electrify our society, and that means that it will demand a lot from our grid system and our infrastructure. And the more we can save energy, being energy efficient, the less the stress it will put on all the grids that we need and all the systems that we have. That we already now we can see that a lot of people, of course, they don't want a big grid right next to their house or in their backyard. So the more energy efficient we can be, the more it will help for the green transition. Also, if we have 100% renewables. And then just finally, I think energy poverty is of course important, and I'm happy that we have provisions in this directive saying, for example, when the energy saving obligation, that has to be directed, that a large part of that effort has to be directed towards those that are energy poor, that need the savings the most.
Okay, thanks a lot. Claudia, I see that we are almost at the end of our session, but just your few ideas on this sufficiency, because I think this is maybe not yet included in the Efficiency Directive. What is the Commission? What are the views on this concept of sufficiency?
This is thank you, and this is I think a difficult topic, in the sense that so far it has been really a little bit of a philosophical topic that has been discussed in many parts. Probably if we really want to decarbonize by 2050, and this is what you know, all our heads of state and government have committed to do, probably energy sufficiency will need to be part of the equation. It's also then a question of deciding what we intend for energy sufficiency, because you know, there are some parts that are saying that there should be an indication of what is sufficient in terms of services. So what kind of services are the minimum that we should have as you know, as people, and what energy is needed in order to provide for these sufficient services. But then it comes who is going to decide what is sufficient. So I think it's an important concept. We've started, I must confess that we've started looking into it in our unit, and maybe it could be interesting for the next commission to look into this. But of course, we will have to see a little bit how to frame it, because as I said, it's not an even concept. And it could be also, let's say, difficult to endorse it. But the word is not unlimited. I mean, you know that there is I think in an NGO that is publishing the date when we have already used all the resources of the Earth available for that year without compromising the existence of the Earth. And this date is advancing and advancing and advancing. It used to be, I think, the end of November a few years ago, and now is something like in August. So, I mean, at a certain point, there is the need to come to terms with that. But of course, I mean, this is for a different conversation, and yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Indeed.
Thank you.
No, indeed, thanks. And indeed, we will have a session on sufficiency, maybe near the end of the series as well. Let me just jump in with a very interesting question by Samuel, and I think Claudia, you will be the one also to answer to that. What about the financial support for energy efficiency that will be available at EU level? So the Samuel mentions the Social Climate Fund, but there's probably various streams as well.
Yes, thank you. Yes, financing is a key aspect, obviously, because we know that all this is costly. The issue that we should not forget is that whatever is available for from public financing is not sufficient, by far not sufficient in order to reach the results. So what we need is to mobilize private financing. And this is an important article. I think that none of us really mentioned that before, but Article 30 of the EED is really, let's say, very innovative and very ambitious. It's basically requiring member states to monitor what is happening in terms of financing for energy efficiency and to report. So financial institutions will be asked to monitor these. And there is a requirement for the Commission to come forward with guidelines, and with a report that will assess what is available in terms of financing for energy efficiency in the European Union, and will also come forward with an assessment of whether an energy efficiency fund in the next MFF will be needed. So, and that will be by spring 2024. But that's just one of the, so that's in terms of public, but as I was saying, private financing is very important. And in this respect, the Commission is launching the European Energy Efficiency Financing Coalition that was foreseen in the Repower EU communication, in particular in the EU Save communication. And the idea is to bring forward the work that has been going on with AFIG. Many of you will be familiar with it, but to involve the member states. It is really key to have also the member states on board, because we need to make sure that there are modifications in the market that allow for more financing for energy efficiency to come from private institutions, so that citizens, companies, SMEs, and so on could benefit. And there was a discussion yesterday, there was a presentation by Commissioner Simpson in the Energy Council yesterday as an AOB point, and the aim is to have a joint declaration signed in the margins of the Energy Council in December. Is a joint political declaration. Member states will hopefully all commit to this coalition to make sure that the coalition works. And there will be that will also require the creation of national hubs to make sure that work for financing for energy efficiency is operational at national level, because of course different member states have different requirements, different needs, different let's say financing systems and so on. So it's a complex exercise, but hopefully that will be a push for more financing, private financing for energy efficiency. And by the way, there is a lot of interest from financing institutions for investing more in energy efficiency, because I mean, it's part of the corporate and social responsibility, and many investors are really asking for more energy efficiency, let's say, portfolios. Sorry, it was a little bit long, but there will be a lot to say on this.
Yeah, well, I think this holds for every topic in this discussion. 1 hour is far too short to discuss everything that we like to do. But I think we should close the session here. It was a great discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. So a big shout out to our esteemed speakers. Also thanks to the audience for participating in this discussion. And maybe before we wrap up, I'd like to give each of you as a speaker the opportunity to share in really 30 seconds your final thoughts before we close the session. So Niels, if I can start with you.
Right, thank you all for this interesting discussion. We made the legislation now. It's a good one, even though Arianna had some critical points. I think it's an ambitious one. I think we can agree on that. Now we need to implement it. And I hope that we can all contribute here. I think we can, and we need to look at Arianna's map, and we need to talk with our governments, put pressure on them. Thank you very much.
Point taken. Thanks, Niels. Claudia.
Thank you. We really look forward to working together with the member states for the implementation of the directive, bearing in mind that all modeling take into consideration hydrogen deployment, electrification, and so on. So all this is part of the equation, and so should not be seen as hindering any further developments in this area.
Claudia and Arianna.
Yeah, on my side, just to conclude that I often put the finger on member states, but just to say that member states at the end of the day are people that are working in the administrations that are often understaffed and need support. So a plea for all people and stakeholders in this webinar is actually to go and talk with the people that are making efforts to implement the directive at national levels, because at the end, good implementation is a collective effort.
Okay, great. I know that we have some of those people working on it on the call, Arianna, so your message will be heard. Okay, thanks a lot to all of you. Wish you a great continuation of your day, and let's indeed make this wonderful directive happen.